Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church again. Oh, it's a lovely day. I'm not talking about the weather. It might be great where you are, it might not be. I'm just talking about it's a lovely day because God is in charge and He's doing wonderful things. And I want to share some encouraging words with you today from the Psalms. Again, I go there a lot. Psalm 40, and beginning with verse 8. And here's what it says. I take joy in doing your will, O God, for your instructions are written on my heart. I have told all your people about your justice. I've not been afraid to speak out, as you, O Lord, well know. I have not kept the good news of your justice hidden in my heart. I have talked about your faithfulness and saving power. I have told to everyone in the great assembly of your unfailing love and faithfulness. Here's a man who writes about God. Now, traditionally, we believe that David wrote most of the Psalms, and he probably did, but we really don't know for sure. Nobody was back there recording it for all time. Israeli TV wasn't there watching as he did these things. But this person who's writing says something really profound, and I think it's profound for you and me too. He says that he takes joy in doing God's will. He's told people about justice. He's not been afraid to speak out. He's not kept the good news of God's justice hidden. He's talked about God's faithfulness and saving power. And he's told everyone of God's unfailing love and faithfulness. Boy, now that's a standard you and I could live up to. How many of us could say we've done that? How many of us could say that we've never held back in saying something about God to others? It's just an interesting life, I think, to do that and to know that you're a spokesman for God. Now, I know a lot of you don't feel that way, and many of you feel like, how can I say something like that? I'm struggling so much in my own life. I sure as heck can't tell anybody else what to do or how to get through. But yet, I think you can. You see, there's something about telling others that also brings about changes in our lives. It's kind of a thing where if you give, then you'll get more. It's it's allowing yourself to be used in order to accomplish a greater good. And in doing that, your life is blessed. Now, besides doing these things, the key to this whole narrative, if we will, is back in verse 8 and the last half of it. Let me read it again. Here's verse 8. I take joy in doing your will, my God, for, because, for your instructions are written on my heart. You see, for this man who wrote this psalm, he knows God, and he knows him in a very intimate and full way. He doesn't have to wonder about who God is and what God's going to do. He understands the character of God. Now, you and I can do the same thing. I'm not talking about understanding the situations that we're in. That's a whole different question. I'm not talking about making sense of struggles. Sometimes you just can't. and you have to live with that. Sometimes you have to live with you don't have the answers. I was watching some detective movies on the television last night, and of course, television, they always solve the puzzle. They always figure it out. They always get the right person at the end. And they usually do it in 30 minutes or 60 minutes of watching. If you take out all the commercials, you're probably watching 40 or 20 minutes. But in real life, we don't always get the answers. There are a lot of crimes that are simply unsolved. They just never find out who did what. And there's lots of speculation about it, but that doesn't mean that they're going to get the answer. So we're not talking about knowing all things. We are talking about knowing the character of God. And how do we know the character of God? Well, we allow His words to take root in our heart. Now, I guess I do mean that in a way that is somewhat mystical. You see, we think with our heads. Uh, I found a good statement I shared the other Sunday. God gave us a brain to solve problems, but so often we use our brain to create more problems. And I think that's true. I'm not talking about intellectually figuring this out. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, I'm not an educated person, meaning they don't have a lot of formal education. And that's not what God's talking about at all. He's not somehow setting people with formal education above everybody else, but he's talking about what's inside of you. What is your character? See, when we know God's character, which is a character of love and grace and compassion to everybody, even when they slap him in the face, he still responds with love. God never, ever gets even with people. I mean, that's silly. He's the creator of the world. How could we ever do anything that would come close to what God's able to do? God doesn't try to get even. He tries to love. And when we let that character rule in our hearts, then we will be able to do these very things that the psalmist talks about. You see, the key here is who are you? Now, I don't know many of you who listen to these devotions. I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am. You only know what you see. And that's better than I have because I don't get to see you. But what is important here is that God knows who you are. And He's the one you have to impress, not me. So why not? What do you got to lose? Your machoism, your sense of I can do whatever I want, your sense of intellectual superiority. What have you got to lose by letting God's character rule your heart? Well, you can think about that. I invite you to take a look and see. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless you. And if you have a need, you have a prayer concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again.